Our guest today is musician, poet, educator, and a very dear and old friend of mine, Alan Semerdjian. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hike. I'm happy to be here.
Recently, you became a poet laureate of New York's Nassau County. Throughout all these years that I've known you, Long Island always had a very special place in your heart, in your identity, in your art. If you can share with us a little bit, what does this honor means to you?
It's a beautiful honor, surprising honor too. Writers write, and we don't often think of the other accolades that come with it. But it's a real. I'm very grateful to have the work honored with this title. Long Island means a lot to me. I My family moved out to Long Island when I was very young from Queens, a small little Armenian community in Woodside, Queens, and then we moved to Suffolk County, actually not Nassau County, where I presently live. And in Suffolk County, I learned to love the pace of the island. Surrounded by water. It's a suburban pace. It's a slower pace. It's more smaller, communities. Although it is, one of the biggest suburbs in the country. But I like the blend of the urban cosmopolitan being right next door and the ability to sort of escape that. And
Mm.
in particular, Nassau County, which is so vibrant and diverse, with many Armenians in it, actually, for me was like it's a bridge on the way to, our a lot of the immigrant communities that come straight to when we come to New York City. So Nassau County seems like it's like logical, next step if you go east. So many people go west. County sort of is like a bridge to me, and its diversity is very, very for me is just really wonderful to see all that. So it's a pleasure to represent that as a poet laureate of Nassau County.
And your grandfather, or a painter grandfather, he worked there, right? I mean, he was you
Yeah.
a couple of generations from Long Island, right? You're native of Long Island.
Yes, I mean, I was so my grandfather, Simon Samsonian, a painter, has actually worked behind me
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Stunning work,
When
beautiful work. There's been quite a few exhibitions on his work recently, right? That you're.
yeah, we've done a few. We're going to do one of his from the estate will be in the Hovnanian show coming up, and a few other shows over the years. We've tried to keep his work alive, and we have some new plans for it too. But yeah, he continued to paint when he moved out to the suburbs of Long Island and didn't do many shows after that. But I grew up around his art, so it's a very interesting blend of things because his art was so present in my life, and Armenian music was so present in my life. But here I was in this new Long Island terrain, so I feel a lot of my work is about kind of bridging that kind of past with whatever your present is. And my grandfather loved Long Island. He was a big advocate for it. Actually, he loved the pace, as I said before, and the natural world and what it offered. Away from some of the city landscapes.
I want to talk about many of the things that you're involved with, including this very interesting international contest of young Armenian poets. I believe for 4 years in fourth annual contest. But before I do that, I want to speak a little bit about you as an educator, because for as long as you know you, you have been a high school teacher. Um, I always remember hearing your students just, always speaking so highly of you, and you're being such a role model for your students. And I always wondered, people who have such a profound profession of teaching kids, teaching the new generation, it must be absolutely incredibly rewarding. Can you talk a little bit about you as a teacher, and what did you learn? What did you learn from your students over all these years?
Thanks for saying that, Hike. I think for me, um, you know, the decision to go into the classroom was a decision that was uh, really intrinsically connected to the idea of being a permanent learner. It's interesting. We talk about teachers,
Hmm.
but for me, the relationship between teaching, and the classroom was rooted in learning. In my head, I figured the best way I can keep myself fresh is to connect with, the youngest among us and to continue to practice my craft as a writer. I'm a songwriter too, and I do other types of arts, but writing is at the core, the act of writing, the act of creating, and to sort of try to understand that through the eyes of our youngest. For me, that was the impetus for going into teaching, and that's what has still like serves me and nourishes me now as a teacher. Is that idea. It's just working with kids. In some ways, you can't tell because I'm so gray now, but it does keep you young, and keeps the heart and the spirit young. And for me, to think about their writing and their reading, the process of writing, reading, and critical thinking, you know, always serves my art. It always comes back to serve my art. Some of the things I'm asking them to contend with and to grapple with, um, you know, comes back to me and says, well, how does it impact me as a practitioner? So yeah, it's like a symbiotic relationship. I think for me, being a teacher has always been that. It's very symbiotic.
And also you sort of, you have no choice but to be connected with time, with current
Yes.
time, you know.
Oh
You have to
yeah,
be current, you have to be active, you have to be present. There's no shortcuts with the kids.
no, there are no shortcuts. You're always in the
They'll
moment.
know it. If you fake it, they'll know it.
Oh, they will know. Yeah, it's very much on display. It's very transparent. The whole process, if it's done right, and if you let down those walls, it is a gift that continues to give. And you're right, it is. You're always great. Time is a great way to
I'm
describe it
right,
because you're always reminded of that. And they're sort of frozen in time in a way
right.
because I always see it's 14 to 18. So I always tell, I have a 9-year-old at home, and I tell the families that I serve, I say, I don't know, I know a lot about 14 to 18. I know nothing about being being a 9-year-old. Maybe people can tell me a little bit about 9-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. So this brings me to the next, my next question. Um, I remember a few months ago you texted me and you said, I'm involved with this organization in this
Yeah.
contest of young Armenian poets. And I said, do kids read poetry these days? And you said, these kids do. And you gave me this and this and this example. And I text you back and I said, I stand corrected
Mm.
because clearly you are a big believer of the power of poetry.
Mm.
And of course, poetry can unite us, can ground us, can make us stronger. Um, and there is nothing more incredible than bringing the Armenian youth from around the world to express themselves through poetry. I think it's
Mm.
quite a spectacular idea. So from what I understand, the contest is in its fourth year now. If you can talk a little bit about it and what is your role in it?
Uh, yes, thank you. So the International Armenian Literary Organization, for which I sit on its advisory board, is we founded the Young Armenian Poets Awards through Yalla, as affectionately called. Um, and it is in its fourth year of existence. And the idea is it's actually the proper name is the Young Armenian Poets Awards this year in honor of Tamar Asadurian, who is a young artist from the New York metropolitan area, a poet and a painter who's not with us anymore, but whose work, legacy kind of keeps on going. And the Poets Awards are named in her honor because the family is very supportive of the work we do. And it's the fourth year. And the idea is that we are trying to create space for the youngest makers among us to express themselves through poetry. So the next generation of poets. And this is an international call. So we try to communicate with our database of schools and institutions around the world to get this call for work in the hands of Armenian teenagers, 14 to 18. And we give them a prompt to think about that is we think might be relevant, and ask them to through poetry to express themselves. Um, through this invention, through imagination, through their hearts, through their spirits, and the work that we've had, the work we've received, the winning writers, and even all the submissions, really, they are truly extraordinary. Um, Not only for their quality of the writing, but the range of interests and just to me, it's telling how different yet the same these Armenians, these young Armenians are around the world when they're, for instance, this year we're sort of contemplating on the nature of home.
Oh.
And you have kids from, all different countries submitting work. And really, you see similarities because for Armenians, home resonates in a certain way, certainly. But you also see these ways in which the voices are different too. So they're very unique voices. And then you have these threads that tie the voices together. So as the facilitator and sort of the founder and director of this, it's great to see that.
Are you
Um,
the founder? Are you the founder of this concept?
yeah, I mean, I started the, through Yalla,
Uh-huh.
I came up with the idea and Olivia Katanjan, who's really supportive, she's our president of Yalla and she's the founder of Yalla. Um, she and I kind of spoke about this, and then several people, um, in the organization were supportive and kind of put it together. And then when we launched it, I mean, it takes a few different people to put it together. Our judges are great every year. Um, you know, there are several people that make the, build the ship. But it is yeah, something that I sort of direct, and I found it. I'm really proud of it. And the organization has now rewarded not just monetarily, but just creating space and published three winners each year, the last 4 years, through partnership with HPEM,
Mhm.
which is the cultural online platform for Hamas Kayan.
Mhm.
So the work lives there and on the International Armenian Literary Alliance site. So these young voices now have a place, what we call sort of an authentic audience. We've created that authentic audience for them, a space for their thinking, a space for their imagination, and it's permanently there for people to see. And a lot of these young writers have gone on to become mentees in our mentorship program in the International Armenian Literary Alliance, and are now well underway. Some of them have founded literary magazines, and their relationship to their art has really grown, right? To art, which is, and this is art is like the lifeblood of a nation or a community, So I think, to be able to offer that for our kids, offer that platform, that stage, that spotlight, seems to be really, really meaningful. I mean, we had two young women from Artsakh actually submitted work. I couldn't believe they submitted work, and amidst all that they were going through in last year's contest. And it's just a testament to young Armenian invention, but young Armenian resolve, resilience too.
And I think it's very fitting to have a topic of home because clearly what happened to Artsakh and
That's right.
our homeland is in very serious danger. And home, we both know it. For Armenians, home is sort of the existential center of existence. Everything revolves around home, building a home, maintaining the home. Um, and is there, when you look at the submissions, do you see a line that connects them all as Armenians? Does this question make sense?
It makes sense. And I do think, it's sort of different every year because of the prompts are different every year. But if I had to identify something that, marries all the works together, I do believe that there is a a preoccupation with this is me saying this off the top of
Mhm.
my head, but a preoccupation with longing, a
Yeah.
preoccupation. I think there's something in the works, and I don't even know if the kids are able to express that. I'm an adult sort of looking at this, and I do see it's at times it's dreamy, Hike. There's a kind of a dreaminess that rises in poetry, which I suppose the genre, almost like is built inside of it. But it is also this preoccupation for, you know, belonging. There's a spirit of love that's really alive in all the works. Appreciation for intergenerational relationships. And I think that those things are true of Armenians across the globe, actually.
I'm very curious, what does Alan Semerdjian works on right now? What are the plans for the future?
Well, right now I am trying to become a good listener
Hmm.
with the position of poet laureate. I'm learning a lot about this county I live in now, currently, Nassau County. I used to be, obviously, when we were in Manhattan, it's a different community. And this one, I'm trying to understand um, the nuances, where the communities live, where they thrive, what they're making. And there are so many, like. So right now, I'm really listening, and I am coming up with a couple of ideas for like a poet laureate reading series for 2025, which I'll announce soon on Long Island. Partnerships with some institutions as well, and a few personal projects. I have a second full-length book that I'm going to hopefully find a publisher for soon, and that's completed. So that's in the works. I'm looking to find that publisher now, and
Poetry book?
it's a book of poems, yeah. And it's been a long time coming. It's a decade of, the way poets work is we write things and then we send it out. And then it gets published in journals, and then we kind of take all that stuff and then make a book out of it. It's like imagine sending like a scene of your
Yeah,
film to a
yeah.
different publisher somewhere.
And
And
also, one thing people don't realize, that poetry is incredibly difficult to write. It's all-consuming
yeah,
occupation that takes a lot of energy. So, it's
yeah.
not
Well,
uncommon. It's not uncommon to work for many years on a poetry book. It's like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah, it could because you're constantly revising and each line is like a chapter. It's thank you for saying that. Yeah. And then I did also create some new music as a musician. I haven't done that in many years. With a dear friend of mine, Mike Bloom, who's a producer and musician in Los Angeles. We recorded out there, and I'm just now starting to look at some of the work that I've released, and I got the last album back from the record company that I had a relationship with. So I have the rights to that album back. So, and there will be new music coming as well in 2025. So I'm hoping for the book and the music, will be
yeah.
really great.
I have a personal question for you, if you don't mind.
Of course.
How does becoming a parent change you as an artist?
Well, that is an interesting question that probably changes with each year of a child's life. One of there's a poem in this new collection that I'm writing. It's a bit long, so otherwise I'd share it with you. But the poem title is called it's called "The End of Being Alone." So as an artist, so much of, at least for me as an artist, and maybe for you and for others listening, artists live in that alone space. They treasure it, right? Because this idea of clearing out what you need to see your vision. It's very much a singular thing. Even if you work in communities and you do communal art, really being able to set aside time and space to be alone is integral for an artist. And when you have a child, there is some kind of deeper reconciliation that is made because now you're inspired in a way that you've never been inspired. However, it is literally the end of being alone because that mental space now is forever occupied. Um, so it is a very much a paradox.
Mhm.
Um, it does indeed. I think it influences you tremendously.
Alan, so I actually want to take advantage of this conversation and ask you to read us one of your poems of your choice for our audience.
Beautiful, and I want to say thank you for this opportunity, Hike. Um, so I'm going to read a poem from the new collection, a relatively short poem. It is coming out in the Southampton Review very shortly, and actually this month. It's called The Love Song for a Small Nation. He ducks his head as he enters the room for fear the sky may be too close and he get lost in the towering cumulus in which familiar vertebrae are released. He thinks of his mother, often thinking of him, hands erasing scars off charts. The world for the lover, every strum, every drop of time between the heaves. Friends gather like reed instruments, dulling the blades in this land of stone. Once, in the spell of apricot leaves, a song thrush considering the maps where his grandfather left ink-stained crumbs. The veins became transportive circuits, measuring distance as moments towards the impenetrable walls of seed. When, as a boy, imagination skipped across the vastness of the rolling sound, it was the need for something calmed that quieted history's wide open noise. He will tell his son this someday. For now, hold hands and wait for the light to change and cross the intersection as if it were an ocean past the borders.
Alan Semerdjian, dear friend, thank you very much for this interview.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, Hike, and thank you so much. I'm grateful.